Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this video we analyze the passage which is based on the printing press and the iPhone. It's a wonderful passage to read, great insights as well, and pretty interesting to read. So let's get started. I used a smartphone to find my way through the cobblestoned maze of Geneva's old town in search of a handmade machine that changed the world more than any other invention. Important line. So the author is searching for something. He's using GPS on his smartphone. Two things that we keep in mind here. Near a 13th century cathedral in the Swiss city on the shores of a lovely lake. So this is not really essential information, right? So you don't need to remember any of it. I found what I was looking for, a Gutenberg printing press. So this is an important fact that has been introduced to us. The passage is going to revolve around it. This was the internet of its day, at least as influential as the iPhone, said Gabriel de Montmollin, the director of the Museum of the Reformation, toying with the replica of Johann Gutenberg's great invention. So basically the only thing that we derive from this particular case is the author went to Geneva. He was searching for a device which was very important, more important than any other invention, which was this device. This was the Gutenberg printing press. He regards this as the internet of the day, at least as influential as the iPhone. So right at the outset, he has set up the comparison between the Gutenberg printing press and the iPhone, right? So that comparison has been set up for us right at the start. Now the next paragraph, before the invention of the printing press, it used to take 4 months up to a year to produce a single book. With the advance of the 15th century book, one press could crank out 3,000 pages a day. Before long, average people could travel to places that used to be unknown to them. With maps, medical information passed more freely, diminishing the sway of quacks. The printing press offered the prospects that tyrants would never be able to kill a book or suppress an idea. So, remember, what does the printing press allow you to do? It allows you to print multiple copies, right? The moment you can print multiple copies, that single book that used to exist, it could be printed into multiple copies. Hence those ideas or books could not be suppressed. Gutenberg's brainchild broke the monopoly that clerics had on scripture. So again, it broke the monopoly of religious authorities as well, right? And later, stirred by pamphlets from a version of the same press, the American colonies rose up against a king and gave birth to a nation, right? So the colonies, the American colonies, they also rose up against the king. They gave birth to a revolution, so they gave birth to a nation. So that means you went against authority, brought in some kind of revolution based on what? Stirred by pamphlets from version of the same press. So basically information got disseminated, people got together, they read all those ideas and they got up against existing authorities. They rose up against those, right? So the second paragraph, effectively, it tells me the positives of the Gutenberg printing press. The first paragraph introduces to me the Gutenberg printing press, equates it with the iPhone, the internet of the day. The second paragraph tells me the positives of the printing press, right? So a question in the summer of this 10th anniversary of the iPhone, has the device that is perhaps the most revolutionary of all time given us a single magnificent idea? So now this is a question which the author is asking with respect to the iPhone. Nearly every advancement of the written word through new technology has advanced humankind. Sure, you can say the iPhone has changed everything. So it has brought about change. By putting the world's recorded information in the palm of an hand, it has revolutionized work, dining, socializing. It has made us more narcissistic. That is, it has made us fall in love with our own selves. We are obsessed with ourselves. Here's more of me doing cool stuff, and it unleashed an army of awful trolls. So these are the negatives as well of the iPhone which are being pointed here. So we've got the positives as well as the negatives. We no longer have the patience to sit through a baseball game without that reach to the pocket. And one more casualty of the iPhone, selling more than 1 billion phones in the decade's time, daydreaming has become a lost art. So these are all the positives and negatives. Now, if you keep the structure of the passage in mind, you will realize that for the Gutenberg printing press, the author only had positives to say. For the iPhone, he has positives and negatives. For all of that, I'm still waiting to see if the iPhone can do what the printing press did for religion and democracy. So he is raising doubts for the efficacy of the iPhone. The Gutenberg Museum makes a strong case that the printing press opened more minds than anything else. It's hard to imagine that the French or American revolutions without those enlightened voices in print. So he's saying that the Geneva Museum is actually making a strong case. How did the American or the French revolutions come about? They came about with the help of the printing press. How? Because it put out all those enlightened voices. So it put out all those positive ideas relating to these revolutions, all the thoughts relating to these revolutions in print, and it helped them spread across, right? More importantly, it was the spread of information that the printing press allowed. For the iPhone, the author is doubtful whether it has done the same for religion and democracy. Not long after Steve Jobs introduced his iPhone, he said that the book bound was probably headed for history's attic. So he basically said that books were headed for the history's attic. They were going to be extinct, not so fast. After a period of rapid growth in ebooks, something closer to the medium for Chaucer's volumes has made a great comeback. So for Chaucer's volumes, that is Chaucer's books, so these are books which were written centuries ago, those have made a comeback. Something closer to the medium for Chaucer's volumes. What was the medium for Chaucer's volumes? This is a very subtle wordplay. The Chaucer's for medium, Chaucer's volumes was printed books. Remember, back in the day there were no ebooks, so that medium is making a comeback. That means he's just used this expression, he's just used this phrase, he's used this indirect phrase figuratively. Instead of saying printed book, he has said medium for Chaucer's volumes. The hope of the iPhone and the internet in general was that it would free people in closed societies. So this was the hope, that it would free people. But the failure of Arab Spring, continued suppression of ideas in North Korea, China, Iran has not borne that out. So this is evidence that why has the iPhone not been able to free people up. The iPhone is still young. It certainly has been one of the most important world-changing successful products in history, as Apple CEO Tim Cook said. But I'm not sure that if the world changed for the better with the iPhone as it did with the printing press, or merely changed. So right at the end, the author again does something which he's been doing in the whole passage. He has raised his doubts, right? He has ended on a note of it's almost on a note of, you can say it's a note of caution, it's a note of disappointment. There is a tinge of disappointment, and the author is doubtful. He's very, very doubtful whether the iPhone has been really effective or not, right? So this is what the passage is about. It compares the Gutenberg printing press with the iPhone. If you have to pick a winner, the Gutenberg printing press is the winner in this case. iPhone is not. It does not come across that well in the comparison that the author has drawn in this particular passage. Hopefully so, with the help of this analysis video, you've been able to understand what this passage is about, right? Thank you very much for watching this video, and happy learning.